Hi, welcome to this episode of Legally Brum. Today we are joined by David Nuttall. David is a barrister at St Ives Chambers. Tell us about your route into the bar and how you got to where you are today.
I went to a comprehensive school in Derbyshire. I went to university and studied law, did the BVC as it was, now the BPTC, and I got pupillage whilst I was there at St Ives. I don't have the sort of stunning CV that I think a lot of people think you might need to go to the bar. What I had was a decent amount of mooting, a number of items on my CV which showed an enthusiasm for public speaking, and other than that, reasonably strong academics and a good work ethic. And I think if you have those things, even now when the numbers are so much worse for aspiring barristers, if you have those things and stick to those sorts of traditional matters on your CV, you can still go far.
Did you always want to be a barrister, or did you ever consider a solicitor as a route?
I always wanted to be an advocate. I also had this erroneous view that the bar had a certain glamour to it, and I can tell you, after you spend as much time at Walsall County Court as I do, you're quickly disabused of that idea. I went to uni with an open mind as to what I wanted to do, but I think as I did a reasonable amount of mooting and mini pupillages at university, I took the view that what I wanted to do could only be achieved at the bar. And I would totally recommend to any students who are at that stage and haven't fully made up their mind, things like mooting and mini pupillages and vacation schemes and mock trials and debating. All those sorts of things aren't just CV points, they're also there to inform you.
So what do you enjoy about being a barrister?
The variety, for a start. Every day is very different. Every case is very different, even if they're within the same sort of practice area. Each is going to be on its own facts, and so that gives that sort of variety. I think within my practice, how I've balanced my practice, so I do half real property, sort of land law, and half the social housing. Which is a lot less black letter law and a lot more human interest type cases. On certain days I can relax at home and get paid for doing nerdy sort of legal research and writing out essays on academically interesting areas of law, that's opinion writing. But then on other days I will be in court, there'll be the pulse racing aspect of the job, with courtroom advocacy, cross-examination, closing speeches, that sort of thing. So it's a great mix. I really like that mix. The other thing about the bar, which I think now would be extremely difficult to leave behind, is the self-employed nature of it. That's very annoying at the beginning. It's very difficult at the beginning. You have to sort out a lot of your own administration, get your own accountant, face the fact you're not going to be getting any pension contributions, sick pay, paid holiday, things like that. But actually when you get over that, when you get used to those things, the freedom of being self-employed really comes to the fore. And the fact you have total ownership over your practice. So you can take off days to prepare your cases. You can take holiday within reason whenever you want. You don't have set hours, you don't have a desk that you have to go to. And as I say, I think if I were to leave the bar and go into an employed job, it would take an awful lot of readjustment to lose that freedom. And I think notwithstanding the disadvantages of self-employed practice, the advantages outweigh them.
How does your progress get monitored by the chamber? You know, in law firms you have chargeable hours targets, you have figures. One
of the great advantages of being self-employed is that you don't have those things. You don't have billing targets. You don't have a set number of chargeable hours that you're supposed to be doing. You don't have a bonus that you're working towards. You simply do your cases, and once the case is done, you don't need to do any more work on it. If the case isn't done though, and I think this is one of the more stressful differences perhaps, the buck entirely stops with you. So if you fall short in your preparation, if you fall short in your performance, there's no support network there that you can fall back on. Yes, there's a support network in terms of Chambers is a very supportive environment, but there's no one who's going to pick up the pieces. It's down to you, it's on your insurance, it's your clients, it's your case. And it's you who's going to get the earful from the judge and the professional client if it goes wrong.
How do you actually business develop then? Is it just that you get all your work through the chambers?
It's both. When you're starting out, and this is why I think it's very useful to stick with the chambers from pupillage into at least early tenancy. When you're starting out, chambers will allow you to use the sort of chambers client base, if I can put it that way, to a large extent. And so the clerks will simply put you forward for cases. That does continue, but it trails off a little bit, and there is, if not an expectation, you're at least incentivized to build up the relationships with clients yourself. And that's both just through the personal relationship you have with the client, the good work you've done on previous cases, and also more organised business development that chambers will facilitate, but that you're expected to get very much involved in, training, marketing events, that sort of thing. And then it's a mix then of relying on chambers and relying on your own contacts to build up your client base and your work.
What are the biggest challenges you faced, either when applying for pupillage or throughout your career?
Applying for pupillage, the challenge is keeping your morale high. You are totally aware of the staggering odds against you, and so you are going in knowing that no matter how confident you felt when you started the BPTC, when you're putting in those applications, you know that actually your chances are a lot slimmer than perhaps you had hoped. And when you start getting rejections and then further rejections and then most of your applications end up in rejections, keeping your morale and keeping that motivation to keep on putting 100% into each further application, it gets hard. But you have to, because lots of good barristers didn't get pupillage the first time around or the second time around. It took them a few goes of continuously plugging away. But I can say the barristers or the applicants who lost faith in themselves probably didn't get the pupillage, because that would have come across in their applications that they're very much just, well, here's another application and I'll just fill it in and resent it. You need to keep on that enthusiasm throughout, and that's hard in terms of applications.
So what do you think the difference is practicing as a barrister in London compared to Birmingham?
There's this perception, I don't think it's as strong as it used to be, but there is still a perception for the bar that if you're not in London, then there's no point, and that you can't really have a practice outside of London, which is total nonsense. I think it's always been nonsense, but it is particularly now. I think that there are great opportunities at the bar in Birmingham. I think that you can take on higher quality cases at a much earlier stage when compared with a comparative common law set in London. And I say that not because the work isn't there in London, but there is less saturation of barristers in Birmingham. You are in a smaller pond. So in pupillage, you may well, at a Birmingham set, be doing Crown Court trials. You may well be doing decent multi-track work in civil cases. You may well be doing high-end public law final hearings in family. And I think that is one of the great attractions to practice in Birmingham, that you do get those opportunities quickly. I think as well, because of the setup of chambers in Birmingham, we don't have the inns where all of the chambers are based. We are very much, all of the major sets in Birmingham are very much spread around the business district and are right on top of all of our major clients. And I think that forces the main sets in Birmingham to take on a very business-like, professional, modern stance. And there's sometimes this perception of barristers' chambers as being these stuffy sort of environments. Very old buildings, no real facilities. It's simply not like that in Birmingham. I'd say all of the sets in Birmingham are much more akin to law firms in the way they're set up, in the way they're presented, in the facilities they have. We're not in some Georgian building in the middle of Temple. We're in a modern office environment. And so we've got the space, we've got the facilities. And because of that drive towards a modern and professional business development, I'd say that by and large, the clerks and the clerking in Birmingham, which is an extremely important part of a barrister's practice, is again very modern, very business orientated, very professional, and I think those are great advantages to working in Birmingham. Birmingham's just a great city as well to practice it. It's an up and coming sort of city, there's loads to do, and from a purely practical point of view, you can buy a house.
So what do you think about other sets moving to Birmingham, such as Landmark Chambers and 3PB?
Well, I think that goes to my answer about the perception of the Birmingham bar. When you've got top-end sets moving to Birmingham, it simply shows that the bar as a whole has recognised that Birmingham is an up-and-coming legal market, and where you can very easily craft a great practice here.
Thank you, David, for joining us on this episode of Legally Brum. Do you have any final thoughts?
Well, just to wish good luck to everyone going through the very difficult and painful pupillage application process at the moment. I wish you all the best in that. Comment, like and subscribe!